Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. This is day two of week eight of Adult Evening and Weekend Platoon. Today, we are going to cover HTTP servers, but on Monday, you guys covered HTTP clients, and your project was to create an application using free APIs. So that's kind of where I want to start today, simply because the use of APIs is probably one of the most important things you're going to do as a developer, connecting clients and servers, or reaching out to the internet to get the newest patch or the newest version of something that your application can use. Those are all API endpoints or API-like endpoints like GraphQL or something along those lines. Um, how did we do on the assignment yesterday? Yeah, yesterday.
I was able to understand it. I just couldn't complete the assignment, I guess. But I got a really good understanding of it.
That is a battle half won. Thank you for the update. Cisco, how'd you do?
I did good. I got a working example going and everything. So
That
got
uses two
it,
three-party APIs?
it uses it used the Cube API and the Chart JS API.
The Cube API, which one's that one?
Yeah, that's data aggregation
Okay.
API. Yeah.
Okay, good. Joe, how'd you do?
I got one working okay. But then I kind of just run into issues with on the HTML CSS side, so I wasn't spending too much time on that. But I have a generally understanding of the overall functionality here.
Okay. Nicole?
Pretty good. I got a simple working example going. So
Sweet. Cisco, you want to start off by showing us your example and then we'll go to Nicole? That work? Do you hear me, Cisco?
Cisco, if you're talking,
You're muted.
yeah,
Doesn't show you're muted though. I don't know what's going on.
he
That's
has
okay.
he always has mic problems. Cisco, you gotta fix your mic.
Nicole, can you start?
sure. Let me
Give it a shot.
uh
Let's share the two working examples that we have, so everyone kind of understands how someone else implemented this. Oh, this looks great.
so
All
I
right,
just
walk us through it.
like I said, it was a pretty simple thing going. I was actually gonna try to get it to do like a rock, paper, scissor thing, but I didn't get to that logic. But I got it hooked up to this one hooked up to random dog pictures. I got this one hooked up to random cat pictures, and this one pulling in random memes. And I was gonna make a rock paper scissor game out of it, like dog cat meme. But I didn't get
Gotcha.
the logic all the way done. Um, but it did throw the cat one threw me for a loop because it was a when I was importing it, instead of it just being a dictionary, it was a dictionary inside of a list. So it kept coming back as undefined until I figured out that you had to put like a data and then you had to put the index zero and then dot the field that I needed, the key. So that one took me about that probably had me spinning my wheels for a little bit. But I did pretty, like I said, pretty simple. I didn't get to the part where I wanted to like have rock, paper, scissors going, but I was able to figure that out. But get all of them in here and working, and then just kind of put the buttons and instead of doing a listener for on click, since I had multiple buttons, I did the on click in the HTML for like each button to run a different function. Because I was trying to do it with event listener for a click on a button, but then I would have to write that so many, like three different times for that. So I just did it this way. It seemed easier. And then I just put everything into this container essentially. Um, so like
Walk
I
us
said,
through your code
which one?
through
This one?
the app.js.
App.js. Okay. So I just when the page loaded, I had it just load um the APIs, and then so in my HTML it would call button and it was a dog, and so when it would call the on click, so when it would click, it would call random dog, which would pull up dog URL. It would open up the container that div that I had here that was just sitting here. And then it's waiting for it to fetch dog URL, throwing it into the variable data. I console logged it because I was trying to figure out what I was doing here. And then I saved it as just image URL. And then I had the container and inserted the image here. Because I had that as a class or whatever here. So I just added it to the class image or whatever. So I just added it there. And then I just did that for each one. Kind of the same way once I got it working for one of them. Did it the same way where on the HTML it would on click, it would call random cat. It would go to the call for the API, start the container, that div, wait for it to get the information, put it into data. This is where it tripped me up a little bit, but then once I figured out I had to pull it from the index 0. It was URL in this one instead of message. So I changed it there, and then I just inserted it into that container. And then again, same thing with meme. This one was a lot easier because it didn't do the same thing as the cat one. I just put it in there and got it going.
Comment out line 3 to 7.
3 to 7.
Comment out, yeah.
Okay.
Save it, and then run your application again. Comment that out and then save it. You need to command S. And then go to your thing, run it, refresh it. All right, now run it.
It still works.
Okay,
I
so my question is, what's the point of line 3 to 7?
That was probably left over from when I was trying to do an event listener, but I had them all button.
Gotcha.
So I just didn't go back to get rid of that because at first I had them all button and had the classes differently. Like each class was different, but instead of doing the event listener, it just made more sense for it to just call it from the HTML to me.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So this is actually really good. Nice job, Nicole. We're going to try to improve your code here. So
Okay.
line 3 to 7 doesn't do anything, right? Look at line 10,
Yep.
12, and 30. They're all what?
They're all calling
Their respective API, right? Or URL.
Yeah.
Well, they just have a hard-coded URL,
Mhm.
right? And then you look at, by the same logic here, look at line 11, line 21, and line 31.
Mhm.
They're the exact same line, right? Now we
Yeah.
can keep going. We can look at line 12, line 22, and line 32. And they're, with the exception of the actual meme URL or cat URL, it's the exact same logic, right? It's just a fetch.
Yeah.
Okay. So ultimately, how would you improve this? Have they taught you dry yet? Do not repeat yourself.
Yeah, I just I was having trouble getting that to work because that
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries. I
like
understand that.
there with just the URLs at first too, where I was just trying to call it, but then it wasn't calling it from the onload, like it wasn't able to see it, so it was giving me an error.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just trying to see, you already figured this out, right? All right, so how do you make this code better? And that's where we're at right now. How do we improve this? Do not repeat yourself is any duplicate code that you can avoid duplicating. So now that you've completed this, right, and it works, right? If I told you you only need one function for this, how would you do it?
I would make all of the API links variables that I could call. And then have it whenever the button was one of the buttons was clicked, have it run the based on the button, run the correct like API, right?
Run the correct logic, right?
Yeah.
This can all be one function, and you can pass in the specific URL, right, as a
Mhm.
parameter.
Question though, on this one that's a little bit different here because it's like this one's URL and this one's URL, but this one I had to do I had to use the
Easy, right?
uh,
There's an identifier per button, right?
Mhm.
Grab that specific button, and it's just simple conditional logic, right?
Right.
If it's this click, I know it's random cat. So parse it this way, as opposed to if it's this button clicked, I know it's random dog. That's how you're gonna know which URL to use,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
use it, parse it this way. And it looks like two of them are parsed the same way and one of them is parsed different. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Make sense? So
Yeah.
how would I go about doing this? I would do exactly what Nicole did. Get it all to work. Okay, now that you've worked on it, maybe you have a little bit of time left. You're like, okay, well, how do I make this better? You understand this the software engineering concept of drive, right? Of not do not repeat yourself. How can I improve on this code, right? Because this looks like a lot of repeated code. And anytime you see that, you know that it can be written better, right? So you start thinking, okay, well, a lot of this is doing the exact same thing. Is it possible that it can only be one function and I can take all the variables as parameters, right? That way I make my code dynamic and reusable. Just a step further.
Mhm.
Very good, Nicole. Thank you. And I love that you did it this way because it gave us the opportunity to kind of reinforce this dry concept.
Yeah, I was playing with it because I was at first having a lot of trouble getting the APIs to work, so I just kept trying to like repeat
Yep.
it to like reinforce what I was doing. So that's why I did 3 because I was like, well, 2 gave me problems, so let me do an extra one to see if I can get it to work.
Exactly. And ultimately, you want something like the ugliest code that works is better than the prettiest code that doesn't. Always remember that. Make sense? So it doesn't matter if someone has something really, really pretty. And actually, this happens a lot in personal projects. People have, dude, this happens a lot in personal projects and group projects. They'll build something out that's aesthetically like nice to look at. And the UI is really well designed, right? And then they start clicking through things and nothing works. That's no good because I'd rather it be ugly and do what you said it's going to do, because at least I can still accomplish the task that I have on your application, right? And when you get a feel for how things are supposed to work, I'll give you a very good example. Last year for Code Platoon Celebrate, and it's this yearly celebration that Code Platoon does, the entire Code Platoon staff was out at the restaurant, and you know how they have QR codes for the menus? We scanned the QR code and we're all having the staff dinner or whatever. And I couldn't get to the menu. It loaded up a UI, but the link to the actual menu was hidden in one of the buttons because of the color. And you didn't know that that was a button. And I was like, well, what's the menu? I was like, and you didn't know it was hidden. It wasn't obvious that it was a button, but it was one of the headers. So you click on it and that ultimately took you there. And I just look at that. I was like, that's really bad UI. Like I'm not a front end dev, but that's awful. Someone built that for that restaurant, and they should be embarrassed because that is horrible. Eventually, you'll start catching stuff like that, even though you're just a dev and you know just enough to be dangerous, even if front end development's not your thing. Make sense? And when things break, you're like, oh, this is kind of bad. Like it should have been done this way, right? That's how you know you're kind of progressing as a dev and you're progressing your field. Good. Cisco, are you back with us, bud?
Yeah, I'm here.
All righty, dude. Can you share with us
Yeah.
your little application? Oh, I forgot to mention this for Nicola. If you guys remember her, you can give her the functions names too, and just call the name of the function, right? Because right now they were just floating around in your file, but those should have a function name.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, let's see. Okay. Let me get this up and running. Oh. Turn my down. And close that. I've closed everything out. Hold on. Just give me a second here. Right. Okay, so yeah, basically I just have a div with the canvas elements embedded or inside of it with the ID acquisitions, and I created a app.js file that essentially will pull the Cube API from this here, which grabs the API URL from this link, and it runs. It's basically getting the data, and I have functions that's getting acquisitions by year. These are artwork acquisitions, and with the API, it allows you to basically customize or filter what exactly you want to pull from it. Makes it a little bit easier to dig down into the data. And get the dimensions and all that stuff. And then over here in the chart, I'm sorry, in the app.js, I have the chart.js where I basically am pulling it and getting the chart object and able to do a create an element inside the HTML by this get element by ID, which is the canvas element. And then I'm basically specifying what type of chart I want, labels and so forth. And let's see, did it start? Oh, it's on I got a different, hold on 1 second here. I don't think I got it to work now. For some reason, it's not. Oh, there it is. Okay, it popped up. So yeah, so essentially I pulled the data, and I have two different charts going here. I have a line chart and a bar chart overlaid over one another. You'll see if I, oh,
What makes this bar chart? Like what creates it? I'm trying to figure out how does this start? It
so
just
this,
on load?
yes, it starts, yeah, it just starts on load. And so I was going to show you here. So you can change the different types, like I could do a pie chart if I wanted to. Yeah, scatter chart. So you can just change different types of charts, right? And and you can customize it the way you want it. So, but that's pretty much it. I got a, yeah. And you can change.
Go to your code,
Okay.
Cisco, and go to the top of the code. All right, very similar to what I was saying to Nicole. They need to name. Don't ever have something run just on the load of a page, right? Something should initiate an API call. Does that make sense? Because typically you don't want functions to run when you refresh a page. Make
Okay.
sense? It should
Mhm.
have something to populate it. And I think early on it's just like you just throw functions in there and then you just hope that they work, right? Just why is that? Can anyone tell me why I say that? Think about it.
Well, because if it doesn't, if there's a problem or error in it and you don't have any catch, you try or catch or anything like that, it won't run and you won't know why.
Yeah, that's part of it. It also is not reusable at all.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a file with a bunch of code that just runs on load.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense? Make sure it
Yeah.
always has a name, right? And make sure that something initiates that specific action because you typically don't want everything to run on a page loading. This is kind of outside the scope of this, right? But when a page loads, you typically want the minimum amount to load for your use case. Can anyone tell me why that is? I'll say this again. When you load a web page, actually, you want the minimum stuff to load, right, for your use case. Why do I say that?
because you want it to, well, you want your content to load as fast as it can so the user doesn't sit there and have to wait for it.
Exactly. Good, Cisco. Thank you. Keep that in mind. You want it to load as fast as possible. Also, if you load a bunch of stuff that the user doesn't use, it's what?
Useless.
Not only useless, but something much, much more interesting that your company is going to care a lot about. Expensive. Right? If you have 10 million site visits a day and you're loading 50% of the content that none of the users use, how much money are you burning? Well, it depends how complex your application is. But it means you're throwing away money. And if your company is barely staying afloat, that's the profit margin. That's your job. Make sense?
Yep.
All righty. Thank you, Cisco. So understanding these big macro ideas, I know I throw a bunch of stuff, a bunch of work stuff at you when I'm teaching you, but I think it's really important for you to kind of understand why these things are important. Because ultimately, when you get to your job, that's kind of the thought process behind a lot of decision making, right? Which shouldn't surprise anyone here, right? Money drives the bus. Also, Cisco mentioned something that I actually didn't see in either of the um, implementations. All right, Cisco, you might have had it. I didn't see it, but you should have on that fetch. You should have a try catch, right?
Yep.
What's a try catch? Anyone know?
Try catches. Do you want me to answer that? Or
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Try catch is basically you within the try block you have a block of code for your script to attempt to perform, and if it doesn't, then it throws a catch that will show you an error, and you can customize an error or have a built-in error that you can throw that lets you know what's going on with it.
Very good. Yep, that's it. Has that been explicitly taught to you yet?
No.
Okay, we're gonna go over it because it's that important. You can go ahead and make just some random folder called try catch on your desktop or wherever you use it. And we are going to work through this very quickly. Anybody use the Pokemon API by chance? I saw that it wasn't on the list, but I know if I've evangelized it here. I do think that one and the Cocktail API are, let's see, really awesome beginner APIs. But let's go through this try catch together. We're gonna just call an API together. That work? All right, so here we go. This is my folder. I literally just created this. Go ahead and open this. I created a folder called try catch in my thing. I'm gonna literally just create an index.js file. Boom, there you go. And I am going to, this is a try catch. This is the syntax for a try catch, right? And if I'm doing an API call, oh, come on, API. Oh, I could have just pressed enter. So it's already loaded in my copy, right? I can ping this. Ah, sorry, give me a second. Actually do it the right way. Copy, copy. This is my API. So I'm just going to put const API equals this string. All right, how would I call this? It's just a what? You had it in your code. Give me the syntax. How do I call it? It's a simple what?
Just a print statement.
No? How do I call it? AWS, I mean, AWS. JavaScript syntax. It's just a fetch, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I just do a const response equals fetch? Can I just fetch that API? Is that going to work?
Yeah, it should.
All right, we're going to find out. And then I can just console log the response. Right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, if this fails, the code inside my try block, if that fails, I actually just want to console log, hey, your API failed. Because console log statements and print statements are for who?
You.
The user.
Yeah, the developer, not the user. Users and developers are different. Okay, so here, how would I execute this file?
Just change the name to something that's not in there.
What do you mean change the name? There's nothing in
Well,
there. There's one file in there.
change the. You said, how do you make it fail?
No, how do I call this how do I call this function? How do I execute this file?
Oh, well, you don't have an await.
I don't have any way. We're
You,
gonna get to
yeah,
that. We're gonna get to that.
you can just run it. You can,
Okay.
but you can run in the terminal.
Node index.js.
Yeah.
All right. I should get a bunch of Pikachu information if this works. Yes.
Yes.
All right. It says promise pending. What am I missing?
Um,
Oh no,
you
wait.
are- yeah, you're missing an await.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna wait it then. Cool, I'm gonna run it again. Check if this works.
There you go.
All righty. I got a bunch of Pikachu stuff. No, not Pikachu. I got a 200 body basic. I'm getting some information, but it doesn't look like it's what I need.
Mm.
What do you think the issue is here? Getting a bunch of
You
metadata.
you have to convert it to a JSON. Or well, you have to convert it to a data format or something that you want to use.
Okay, response, cons, parse, response. All right, how about this? JSON response. And then here it's just await the JSON response, right?
Right.
Response dot JSON. And then here, what I really want to do is JSON response. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
This looks right.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like I have my Pikachu name. It looks like I got my Pikachu images. Let's do the back shiny. These look just like URLs. Let's verify. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so this works. I got this. But let's say that the URL was malformed, right? Or it's not quite right. Notice I added a bunch of numbers at the end of line 6 of that URL. So now if I run, it's probably going to fail. So if it's going to fail, how am I going to know it's going to fail?
Your console log statement will show up.
Yeah. So let's see if that works. See that? Something in here failed. That's how the try catch is meant to work. Like, hey, all of this code inside the try block has to work perfectly. If it doesn't, they're going to hit this, right? And that's just one, right? A lot of the times there is a built-in error in JavaScript, right? So you can easily do a template string, right? You can do a template string and say error, and then just actually print the error, whatever it says there. Where is my, no, I was blanking on how exactly you do template strings. This is probably, well, we're gonna find out if this is right. Error. What am I missing here? Oh, it's backticks, right? There you go. That's right. So you can actually print the error that it comes with, right? So here I'm going to print not only, hey, your API failed, but also print the error, right, that you caught. So there you go. It says, hey, your API failed, but if you want this, right, this error, it's a syntax error, and it helps you out as a developer. It says, hey, you have a syntax error, unexpected token end not found, valid in JSON, right? Saying you have a syntax error. They don't know that it's here, but that's where it is. These are known as query parameters, right? Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So remember I told you that everything should be encapsulated in a function, right? This isn't encapsulated in the function at all, right? I'm just running it. I'm just executing the file, right? So let's make this a little bit more dynamic, right? And a little bit more useful. So let's just declare my function called fetch API. Let me just call it that. Fetch API. And I'm going to put this logic in there. Right? So now I can export fetch API. I can call it whenever I want. That's a little bit more useful. We'll tab it over. There you go. I have a function called fetch API. Now, if I console log that function call, this shouldn't change anything, right? If I do that, and I fix my URL, and I just do Pikachu, right? This should work. Yes?
Yeah.
This doesn't change anything, except now it's reusable. I can fetch API here. I can call the function. I can import it and call it whenever I want. I have a name if my HTML needed to call it. So now I was trying to execute this. What's the issue here? The ID is trying to help you.
You need an async in front of the fetch API
Yep,
function.
async. Like that.
What does
Is
the
it-
async do?
Someone can answer that? It's saying it's a keyword that's telling you that it's an asynchronous call, right? The example that I always give is you ever go to Costco and get their hot dog drink meal for $1.50? I do. I love Costco.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sponsored by Costco though, unfortunately. So here we go. You go up to a little kiosk, which is amazing for people that don't like to talk to people, and you order your hot dog. The minute that you pay for it, you don't get your hot dog instantly, do you? No, that's an asynchronous call. You've made the request for the hot dog and the drink. What do you have to do now?
Wait and go get it.
Yeah, you have to wait until someone makes it and go scoop it up. It's the same thing here, right? Async means, hey, I'm about to make a call, and I want you not to return anything. I want you to wait for my server to respond, wait for my hot dog to get finished. And when it is, send it to me. But I'm going to have to wait because it's not automatic.
That's a very
Same.
good analogy.
I've been using that one for about 3 years. I love that one. Yeah. So that's what you're saying, right? So this is an arrow function. So the link here, so the syntax here is a little wonky, right? It's the name of it, and then This is the function. So sync goes here, right? So now this is exactly the same. There you go. Boom. Got the same, got the Pikachu, got the little shinies, got everything. Cool. So now this is actually reusable. And I have a try catch. Yeah, and I'm actually printing the error, and I'm printing, hey, your API failed. Right? Why is this really important? This is stuff that the user is never meant to see, but it's stuff that you're meant to see really. I mean, you're meant to see if it's not working, right? Especially when something breaks. When something breaks in an application, or they give you an application that's already broken, one of the main things that you're going to do is go look at the logs, the error logs. And the heroes that put a bunch of print statements or have really good logging in their application are a godsend, because it's going to tell you exactly what's breaking and where to go. So you can start debugging or fixing it, right? It's really hard to debug an application when you don't know where the error is. Make sense? All right, so this stuff's really helpful. Okay, cool. So we've already created this, this fetch API function. What if I wanted to make it a little bit more dynamic? What if I wanted Charmander instead of Pikachu? How would I make this function a little bit more dynamic? Where I can pass in the Pokemon that I want to ping the API with. How would I fix this? This is kind of what I was telling Nicole to do. So this is hard coded here, but I really want, when I call my fetch API function, I want to pass it one of the, there might be 1,000 Pokemon now, I don't know, one of the original 151 Pokemon, right? So I want to pass it a name, and I want it to fetch information for that Pokemon, and not Pikachu every time, because this function right here on line 17 fetches Pikachu. How do I know that? Because line 6 is hard coded. But if I passed in a string of Charmander, I want this to work. So fix my function. How do I fix this? This should work. Line 17 should work. Fix my code on line 3 to 14 to have line 17 work. How do I do it?
You have to place a you have to place an argument or parameter inside the async parentheses.
Not an argument, but it's a parameter.
Yeah, parameter. Yeah.
Pokemon name.
Mhm.
Cool. There you
And
go.
then, and then replace the quotation marks around the URL with the backticks. And take Pikachu out, put a $, curly braces, Pokemon name inside of it.
So if this is right and I run this, I should get all my Charmander stuff.
Yep.
I did. Charmander. Right? That makes sense? And this only takes one parameter. It could take multiple parameters, right? It can be an even generic, like look at the name of mine. It's called Fetch API. Notice I didn't call it Fetch Pokemon API. You could actually refactor this, right? And even take in an API URL even. Hey, I'm going to pass in the API URL. I'm going to pass in the query parameters. I want you to make a fetch given all this information, regardless of what API I get. Right? Let's try it, a little bit of it, to kind of show you. That was Pokemon. That's today's lesson. Let's look at cocktails because I really love this API. If you haven't had a chance to play with this one, definitely play with it.
Joe would like that one.
Very funny. Very funny. Guy shows up hungover one day and never live it down.
So let's create cocktail API, right? Let's just take this one at a time, right? And here, this is a query parameter too. So instead of margarita, right? Dude, I don't even know that many drink names. I'll just put drink name. And instead of backtick, instead of string, I just make a backticks, right? Boom. I'm going to keep the name the same, fetch API, right? And instead of Pokemon name, I'm just going to call it query param one URL string. Cool. And here, instead of Pokemon name, this is just query param one. And guess what? This is query param one too. All right. So I am working on this logic. I just put generic error in your API file. It doesn't say which API. Cool. Fetch API. We're going to remove this. And we know we have two arguments here. We'll get to that later. All right. How do I make this work? So I just have a generic fetch API, right? That takes in two parameters. It takes some query param one, right? And it takes some URL string. I can And this actually, don't really need it. I did that wrong, right? How do I form the URL if this is how I'm going to build my API call? And I can just call it the API URL. Just call it API. How do I form this? I actually did it wrong on line 6 and 7. I don't actually need those. I have to create something new with the two parameters that I pass in. So build this for me. It's just what? Actually, it might help if I did this.
You're
This is
gonna
just a, go ahead.
you're gonna put URL string and then um like the input, the parameter,
Yeah, that's it.
and then query parameter one afterwards.
There you go. If I'm already passing in that URL string, right, that's just the beginning. And then the next one is just query param. It's just both parameters concatenated together, right? Query param one. That is my URL if I'm passing in what I need. Notice how I picked two APIs, right? Where this comes at the end. I did that purposefully. Make it easy to understand. Okay, so I actually don't need these. These I'm going to need later. So I can actually pass them in down here. But we'll worry about that in a second.
That was a small change, but that kind of blew my mind right now.
That's good. So I'm trying to walk through this really important because ultimately, right now you're getting the basics, but ultimately when you really do get to the job, a lot of these functions are going to be um, agnostic, right? And they're gonna be what they call decoupled, right, from anything else, right? They're gonna be just things that do something, right? And whatever parameters are passed in, right, or whatever dependencies they need to function need to be passed into that function, right? That's how you make something really reusable. Because if you have, let's say you have a big application, let's say you have a really big application, right? Let's take Airbnb, for example. How many, and I don't know this, but how many different APIs do you think Airbnb pings? Let's think about it. This is actually a really good exercise. Everybody familiar with the Airbnb app? Even if you've never used it, you're familiar with it, at least what it does?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's think about it. How many different APIs do you think it pings? I'll give you the first one. Really, really simple. If you've ever used the app, you know that after you book, you can click on the little map and you can open up Google Maps where it is, right? It's pinging the Google Maps API. That's one, right? What else? When you book something, you have to pay for it, right? So it's probably pinging a third-party payment API like Stripe. That's two, right? What else is it possibly pinging? I stole the two easy ones, right? But it's also pinging what?
Real estate data.
Real estate data? What do you mean? Be specific.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not pinging all real estate
no,
necessarily.
homes that are for sale, I guess, or
Not for sale, but for rent,
for rent. Yeah.
right? So there's some kind of backend API that they're pinging that they've built that has all of their Airbnb hosts, right? That's three, right? Here's another one that may be a little bit subtle, but they're also doing, and I don't know how this is implemented, but it definitely is some kind of API endpoint, right? The app messaging. When you book and you message the host, say, "Hey, I'm arriving at like 8 p.m." or they'll message you the key to the code to get into their place. That's some kind of endpoint. Whether they built it in-house, I don't know. Whether they stripped something from a third party, I don't know. But that's another one, right? So there you go. Four very obvious APIs that they're using, right? It's very possible that the generic API, right, it's not duplicated and they're just passing all the dependencies, all the parameters into the same function. That makes it easier to maintain, right? Because if something breaks on those API calls, they know exactly where it is because it can only be in one place, right? Whereas if they had four different functions doing the same thing, right, that's much harder to maintain, especially when they update their code. They would have to update it in four places, not one. Make sense? There you go. Okay, so how do I make this work here? All right, so let's go with, I'm going to show you what line 23 is going to do. Let's just do this string. We're going to ping the cocktails margarita API. So I'm going to pass it two strings. I'm going to pass it this, and then I'm going to pass it the string margarita. Right? That effectively will concatenate here and create the cocktails DB API. Right? So how would I do this here? Is this going to work if I run it? Is this going to work if I run it?
It looks fine to me.
All right, let's see. So it should return margarita information from the cocktail API. Yes? Let's debug this. It said it failed. Why did it fail?
Well, there's a fetch right there, and you're plugging in the URL as an argument to the parameter, so I can't really see why it would fail.
How do we debug
Just
this?
let me see.
What's the first thing we need to do? This didn't work. It caught the catch here. What's wrong?
Is it the dollar sign in front of margarita?
Oh, nice. Yeah. That doesn't belong there. That's a template string. We're not passing the template string in there. We're passing just a string. It's a syntax error. All right, let's try it again. Fail. So it's saying that this failed to parse this. So let's compare it. I just literally pulled this from here, right? So this is the right one. How can I check if that's that URL? Just very quickly, I can do what? I can do a curl, right? You guys learned your curls, right?
Yeah.
Curl is just a GET request. I can curl it, right? Real quick. This is going to return data, yes? Margarita
Yes.
data.
Yeah.
Ooh. What is it saying?
Says no matches
Doesn't
found.
exist.
That didn't work. Let's try
Mm-mm.
that again. Let's try Postman. Have you guys been introduced to Postman? Let's try
A little
Postman.
bit.
All right. We're going to do just a GET request to that Margarita APIs. All right. Let's try it. Well, that did work. Right? So that URL is correct, right? Information on Margarita. We're going to close that. We're going to go back to Postman, right? But this, for whatever reason, was not finding anything. That's fine. We use Postman, and we're saying that this URL is correct. So what is wrong? How do we debug this? What's the first thing you're going to do? This is yours. How do we fix this? Can't just give up on it. It's easy. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to throw a console log where?
Underneath the one underneath the response, maybe.
Not
Or
the
should we do
response. Well,
the API just to see
let's do
what
the API and then the response. Console log API.
Mhm.
Let's see what's happening here. So we should get the API first because that's the first console log statement. Saying this right here.
Mhm.
Does that look right?
Mm, yeah, it does look right to me.
Does look right, and then we get an error here.
Right. Promise pending.
Is it because we're not putting this? It might be really stupid. Is it we're not because we're not putting the HTTP or HTTPS before it?
Mm,
Yeah, that
it
it's
I feel like that shouldn't cause this error, but
but we pinged it on Postman,
right.
yeah, that's the I don't understand why it's not coming up in the curl either, though.
right?
And it,
Yes, good point. Right.
Mhm.
All right. So it's also showing that this isn't this is pending. This looks right, right? And the
Right.
Postman had it right, right?
Right.
So this is your problem. How do we? All right. How about this? What if we just try this as a debugging method? We'll comment this out. Is this not being formed right? Or is the API wrong? Right? We could easily comment that out and just hard code this. Right? We hard code this here. We can check. This is exactly what's coming up in Postman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's check if it fails again. There's no question that this should work. And it failed,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Give me 1 second. All right, this time I'm not going to go over. This is what's going to happen. I slacked all that code to you, right? We're going to take a break until 6:45. But at 6:45, you're going to take your little break. You're also going to have that code fixed for me. What is the issue there? Right? Because that's a normal issue. Joe, I think you might be onto something with that HTTP. I actually don't know the answer to this, guys. I'm going to give it to you guys. I have faith that you can figure it out. The code is right there. You're going to take a break. You're going to fix that code. See if you can do it without any outside help, right? Just learn the steps. Throw in hard code to string. Like, why is that not working? Right? It should work, right? It doesn't work on curl, but it works on Postman. That's very strange. I don't know why that's happening, right? And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take a break and figure out why this doesn't work. Yes? Give it a shot. And then when we come back, we'll go get started on today's lessons. It's a shorty, so it's going to be good. Austin, Texas. Just got a warning on my phone to get your dogs inside. If not, they might get, I don't know, tail bite. You know, people love their pets. Here's a really important tip for you guys. If you haven't learned this one already in the job, or some of you guys might be coming out of the military, that work life. Don't ever talk badly about people's pets. One time I said something disparaging about cats. It did not go over well at the work. Apparently people love their pets. I learned that one the hard way. Anyway, I'm sure you guys probably already know that. Even if you like them, well, if you like them, obviously say something. And if you don't like them, lie. Say how great they are. Doesn't matter what pet it is. Anyway, all right. So what was the issue with that one that I just gave you? Oh, you're muted, Nicole.
I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is it's a dictionary that has a list that has dictionaries in it.
Yes, but the issue is kind of what Joe said. Joe, did you dig
Yeah,
deeper into that?
it was it's because of VS Code. VS Code couldn't like parse through the URL without putting HTTPS. Or actually, I tried it with HTTP without the TLS handshake, and it still worked with that. So, but it needed one of those two in front of the URL.
Yeah, did anybody figure out why it worked on Postman and didn't work on the terminal, on the control terminal?
My guess is that Postman was just doing that automatically.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So Postman's meant to be really user friendly, right? So even if you kind of screw it up, it'll attach HTTP, and if that doesn't work, it'll forward to HTTPS to get the command to go through. That's the reason. Whereas your control command is just very bare bones, right? And it requires the HTTPS. Oh man, we're getting held on. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay.
Your mic is kind of muffled.
Yeah, I think it's trying to block out the sound of that because your mic is getting muffled right now.
Okay. Give me one.
It's not that bad. We can
Dude,
still hear.
it's coming in so loud. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys.
As soon
Oh
as
my
it get
God.
cold
I'm
enough
gonna
to
take,
hail.
hey, I'm gonna take recording of this. This is insane. Oh my God. Oh, guys, you are going to love this video. This is insane.
Put it in Slack.
Yeah, I got you.
Are
This
you
is
gonna-
crazy.
Are you going to be all right, Guillermo?
No.
What do they tell you?
No, I got you. Give me 1 second.
That's crazy because Sunday it was hailing here.
Is your roof going to hold up?
No, I'm in an apartment. We're good. I'm on the bottom floor. I gotta worry over there. Dude, I'm about to drop this in the question. That's crazy. Oh, they weren't kidding. I got that message a couple of minutes ago, dude. And next thing I know, I was like, why is it so loud outside?
You got some golf balls out there?
Yo, that's
It, it,
crazy. I've never seen that before.
is your car okay?
Probably not, but I drive like a 13-year-old Honda Civic, so I don't care. Dude, check out that's out my window right there. I just sent it. Sorry, guys, that was neither here nor there.
Oh, wow. That is crazy.
Yelling in the background is funny. Man, those are big chunks of hail, man. No one,
Those
what's
are,
out there, he'd be getting crushed.
man. Hey, you should go out there and get your cup and get some ice cubes, man.
Wow.
That is crazy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We're gonna lock in, guys. Sorry about that.
I've never seen it hail that bad either.
That's crazy. Believe it or not, I think a couple years ago it held even worse. And my girlfriend's sister's apartment up north of Austin got they took video. I think I might have some pictures. I'll send them in the questions later. I have some pictures. People's cars, the windows were all broken. Like you go out to the parking lot in the apartment complex, all the cars' windows were broken. And you're like,
Wow.
oh, I'd be so mad because that is not covered under regular insurance.
Right. Right. It's not.
That's a couple $1,000s of damage from one day to the next. Anyway, never
Jeez,
mind.
Louise.
I'll find those pictures. I'll send them to you for your entertainment. Anyway,
Supposed-
okay, cool. Go ahead,
That's summer,
Cisco.
that's summertime weather for you, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's crazy.
Alrighty. All right, back to this that was actually really, really important. Okay, so Postman worked because it's meant to be user friendly. I'll add the prefix of HTTP and then it'll redirect HTTPS for it to work. So that's what's happening under the hood. That's logic that whoever wrote Postman, if I was to look at Postman, the company, their code base, there's logic where that's happening. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, hey, if they give you this URL without the prefix, I want you to attempt this. And if that doesn't work, I want you to forward it HTTPS before you send an error to our user because we are user friendly. This is what we do. Whereas in the terminal, you don't have that. You need to punch it in right? If it's HTTP and you run it and it's not open on HTTP, which is typically port 80, and it's going to return an error. It's not going to be kind enough to add the S there. Okay, so that's what's happening. Same thing with VS Code. Nice job, Joe. You got that one, buddy.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yes, sir. All right, so that's gone. Let's get to today's lesson here. Desktop 2, share. All right, here I can just X out of that. We can create another file here once we get to it. All right, can you guys see my GitHub?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Today, you guys already did HTTP clients. Today, we're going to talk about HTTP servers. And a server is just what?
A machine somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a computer somewhere else that you don't typically own. But could you own your own server?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. You could have it in your closet if you wanted to. It's just typically someone else's computer, right? So I'm not going to read all this. It's just a lot of hubbub. Feel free to read it though, if you have time or you are so inclined. But here, this is something that's really important that I want you guys to kind of think about. Most of the infrastructure that you're going to be dealing with as a developer, it's going to be client to server, right? So is this picture on the left? A lot of client devices connecting to kind of a lot of servers, but less, right? It's just going to be multiple client device, and a client device, as you already know, can be anything. It can be your phone, it can be your laptop, it can be. Can anyone give me an example of another client device? It can be your phone, it can be your laptop, it can be what else?
Raspberry Pi.
Your smart
That can
fridge.
be, yeah, okay. That's kind of where I was going with this, Adam. They call those Internet of Things outside of the scope of this, right? But now you start having things that have internet access for what reason? Who knows? You know, but those can act as clients too, right? You guys have any? I don't have this, but my brother has this in his place. Fancy thermostats, like at 4:30 before he gets home from work, the AC turns on, and at night it drops from 73 to 68 because my brother likes to sleep cold, right? Right. That's tapping in. That's a client, right? It's tapping into the internet, right? And it's doing stuff, right? So there's a lot of client devices in the world, right? Tons of them, far less than there are servers. But this is the kind of system that as a dev you're going to deal with, right? But there's also a different kind of infrastructure, what they call P2P or peer-to-peer. And the most famous example, as it's said here, is Napster and LimeWire. And believe it or not, P2P is one of the greatest inventions in humankind, in human history. Can anyone tell me why? I mean, this goes up there. Go ahead.
It allows you to download movies illegally. That's why.
Yeah, but that's not the reason it's one of the greatest inventions, right? All of a sudden, these are really the two main modalities of networks, right? This is the one really you're going to deal with. But this one is probably one of the most important inventions. Anybody know who invented this kind of thing, or at least paved the way? He was the founder of this right here, Sean Parker, the founder of Napster, right? But why is this so powerful, peer to peer? Yeah, we can
Anybody,
download. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
anybody can share anything essentially.
Yeah.
As long as you have a network connection, you're good to go.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Joe said, hey, illegal movies. Yeah, but that file, so think about it. They're just bytes. It can be a byte of anything. It can be a byte how to, dig a well for your community and give access to hundreds, if not thousands of people. It can be the schematics to uranium enrichment. It can be porn. It can be anything. It's just a byte. So you can share anything. That's incredible, right? That concept changed the world, right? So I hate to be like a tech fanboy, but that is incredible that someone thought of that and figured out how to do it with music. But it didn't have to be music. It can be, as Joe said, a video. It can be a book. It can be literally anything,
So
right?
crypto.
So yeah, right. The precursors, right, to blockchain, right? This right here, we haven't seen the end of. And that, oh, sorry. And that is one of the greatest inventions in human history, peer-to-peer networking, right? Because it effectively connects them, right? Without the need of, I don't want to get too conspiracy theorists, right? A big brother that owns all the servers, right? And clearly sells your data because I've been getting a bunch of text messages about some administrative job they have for me if I just join their WhatsApp group. Not sure if you're getting those scams lately, but I'm getting some of those.
I deal with
Okay.
all the
They're so annoying. I get at least one a day.
yeah. I don't remember if I was telling you guys about this. We had we're on are we recording right now? Yes, we are. All right, so I'll leave it high level. But there's investment scams. And this dude lost like $1 million from a scam like that, thinking that it was for high net worth individuals. They hit him up and they're like, "Hey, invite to this WhatsApp group." And yeah, nonstop. Actually, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about another kind of version of this, of because North Korea, what they love to do is get people hired at tech companies.
Yeah,
Um, and then they're just like putting backdoors into all of their software and just ripping everything.
that is incredible insight, Joe. Thank you for sharing that.
Fun
Uh,
stuff.
but yeah, I don't want to get again too conspiratorial, but people think that petty crime is bad. Petty crime is not that bad. White collar crime, sophisticated crime like that, those guys, I mean, I might get fired for this, but those guys are the real criminals because these guys steal from Marshalls. My mom works at Marshalls. That's why that came to mind, but these guys
Just turn
steal
off the
billions of dollars.
recording. Just turn off the recording and say whatever you want.
No, that's okay.
I'm
That's okay. Oh, believe it or not, I think I'm the number one instructor that's had the most complaints levied against them. So I have no problem getting in trouble. I just tell it like it is. That's fine. Anyway, peer-to-peer, two important systems of network systems. So there you go. I need to understand that. So this is a really important thing that I didn't say earlier, but think you need to understand this. This peer-to-peer connection, each device acts as both a client and a server, right? So here, remember how we download cute little Pokemon pictures from the API, right? But in peer-to-peer, you just download it from someone else, right? So if someone had the new, awesome 50 Cent in the Club remix, you could just download it from them. And that's ultimately, kind of like the precipice for Napster. So there you go. But the main thing you're going to be really dealing with as a dev is just this client-server relationship, right? Where the client just requests some kind of information from the server and the server responds if it has the information you're looking for, right? So we introduced APIs last week and we covered clients yesterday. Now we're going to cover a bit more detail and make it even simpler. You can think of a server as something that responds to requests. And again, it's just another computer, right? So you're pretty much asking another computer for something and they're going to respond to you. So what happens when requests and responses? Requests and responses are governed by protocols. And earlier we were talking about HTTP and HTTPS. Those are specific protocols. HTTPS stands for what? I always forget what it stands for. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And then secure is just the S at the end. So there you go. So they're just protocols. In other words, they have to conform to certain agreed upon conventions. Both requests and responses need to contain the information in a certain order. So here we go. An HTTP request needs a request line, and it includes a method such as a get, post, delete. You guys know your CRUD operations? You guys cover that? Okay, so pretty much every application on the internet is a CRUD, right? You can create something. Right, stands for create, read, update, delete. Right, let's take an example. Let's take Facebook for an example. Can you create a post on Facebook? Yes. Can you read someone else's post on Facebook? Yes. If you don't like a little update, can you edit it? Yes. Can you delete a post that didn't get enough likes? Yes. Right. So that's pretty much all that internet application is. It's a CRUD application. And those methods, right, correspond to certain HTTP protocols, right? And that's what this is getting at. What's GET? In terms of CRUD, what's GET? If I'm getting information,
Retrieving it.
yeah, reading it, right? If I'm posting, I'm doing what?
Creating it.
Creating it. If I'm deleting, I'm deleting, and they're missing one.
Update.
Update. They don't have it here, but it's known as a put. Hey, grab something that's already there and make an amendment to it. Put. Right? So these HTTP requests all correspond to an acronym within CRUD because that's all you're doing in a web app. Make sense?
Yep.
They correspond one-to-one. Nothing fancy. That's what it is. Alrighty. So HTTP request has a request line. What kind of method is it? Right? Is it a get? Is it a post? Is it a put? Is it a delete? What is it? Right? Then it has headers that has a bunch of metadata in it. Right? That has a body. Sometimes it'll be HTML, but a lot of the time it will be JSON. And a lot of the time it's just parsed JSON that gets thrown onto the DOM with awesome HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So those are the two main payloads you're typically going to get. So that's the request and the response. You're going to get a status line. Remember I talked about status codes? You get a status codes. What's the status code for something that goes right or works properly?
200.
Yep, 200. Right? What's the status code for Oh, it says it right here. I'm not even gonna ask you. Right.
Mhm.
So most common status rows, really what you want is 200 and something, or 200. 200 says, hey, your request went through perfectly. Awesome. You'll get 400s a lot. And 400 is a lot tells you that it's a client error. Can someone give me an example of a client error?
Not found.
Yeah.
Your program
You're,
sucks.
yeah, 404 not found, right? You don't have to have these memorized, but after a while, you remember the popular ones, the ones that you see, right? 404 not found, right? That's a client error. That means you're requesting something that's not there. So that's on you, client, right? Sometimes you'll get a 403. It means you're not what? Does anyone familiar with that? It means you're not authorized, which means you don't have the right credentials, right? And then you'll get 500 errors. And 500 errors tells you there's nothing wrong with your client. The issue is what?
It's a server side.
Yeah, it's a server-side error, right? The server might be down. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a couple years ago, there's a lot of AWS services that went down, and people were complaining on Twitter that the Roombas stopped working because that's an Internet of Things, right? It was connected to their Wi-Fi and it was supposed to work at set intervals, but it wasn't working because what it was tapping into was down. You guys remember that by any chance? You can Google it later, but that's just a funny situation, right? Hey, their servers were down. That's why people's Roombas in their homes weren't working. Just a kind of a silly example. But there you go. All right, so status line, you're going to get the status line code. Headers provide information about the response, such as content type and response body, and then it will have sometimes a body. May include a body which contains the requested resource or additional data generated by the server, typically a JSON package or some kind of HTML or something like that. All right, so we saw this yesterday. You saw the curlvexample.com. So we already kind of touched upon it. The protocol request is this, and this part you don't necessarily need to know that well. This is just kind of the nitty gritty of it. The above HTTP command request to a server, curl hides a lot of details from us, right? And what they call is, what do they call it? It abstracts. That's the word. It will abstract a lot of it. We saw a lot of abstraction in Postman when we just put in the WW request. Remember that? What was abstracted from us? All the logic behind the scenes where it says, hey, if they don't prefix it with an HTTP, do it behind the scenes. And even if that doesn't work, I want you to forward it to HTTPS and try that. And only if those three fail do you return an error to the user. Because we're Postman, we're user friendly. We're going to make it work for them. Make sense? Okay, so it abstracts a lot of this stuff, right? So curl is really just a what? Curl is which of these?
Get.
Yeah, it's just a get. So keep that in mind, right? So it hides the entire protocol from you. It's a get, right, to HTTP, right? The host is your URL. The agent it's using, it's apparently curl, and this looks like a what?
The version.
Looks like a version. And it says accept */*. Does anybody know what these stars in programming mean? They typically are what kind of character?
Catch all.
Yeah, wildcard character. Hey, accept everything. There you go. Remember, this protocol is just convention. It's just bytes, strings that conform to certain expectations that they expect, right? Someone actually built the protocol, and you must follow the protocol for it to return things properly. Make sense? Okay. This is a bunch of the other stuff that goes with it that, again, it's abstracted away. You don't need to necessarily know it, right? But if you want to read about it, go ahead. This is really important. Most of it is optional. It will depend on the server that's responding to your request. Some servers could have some logic on them, right? That are making them very user friendly. Some, it's possible, that are not. Make sense? I've seen some servers when you try to send a GET request and your URL is malformed, they'll respond with telling you that it's a typo. And did you mean this URL? And actually send you something that matches what you submitted. That's really user friendly, right? Not only does it tell you, hey, you messed up, but I think you meant this. That way, when you send it again, you have the right one. Make sense? Again, every server is different. So like those are super friendly servers, right? Not everything's going to be like that. Okay, cool. This just talks about the payload that you want to send. Now let's get into servers. So production grade servers, as in servers that you typically interact with, are often pretty robust, especially if what's being held on them makes the company money. Does that make sense?
I've got a question on
Yeah.
why would we use HTTP over HTTPS? Wouldn't that introduce some security?
You never would use HTTP. You use all HTTPS going forward.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
But interesting note, you have to understand that the internet is old. It's not even that old. I mean, for the mass population, 30 years old. That's not that old. But it has evolved over time, right? It has evolved over time. And originally, the original protocol was just HTTP. And then guess what? Hackers figured it out. And they started exposing a lot of vulnerabilities. So they built security into the protocol. That's the S, HTTPS. So you always go to HTTPS, right? So they built it, right? And then they started encrypting traffic in transit, right? And they started having, certificates of authenticity for websites that saying, hey, this website has not been tampered with. It's legit, right? Well, that's outside the scope of this, but yes, it has evolved over time to be more secure. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
It used to be that if you guys were sharing an internet connection, you can pull up the person pinging a certain website and capture some of their traffic and see what they were surfing, which is a complete violation of privacy, but you used to be able to do that. Can't do that anymore. That's if you're a high-level hacker, I'm sure you could probably still figure it out. But for us normal people, you had normal people doing that before. Now you don't have that anymore. Okay, so servers. So I was saying that production grade servers, as in servers that typically interact, are pretty robust, typically for companies that make a lot of money, right? Like the servers for, let me think about, like the servers for Uber. I can't imagine how robust they are. They have to be. That's a multi-billion-dollar business. Same thing with Airbnb, all the big tech companies, Facebook, all those. Amazon, right? They have to be because they don't want to lose business, right? I already said this, right? When you go to Amazon.com, they call this above the fold. Everything above this line, right? This has to, you see how fast it loaded? They optimized the landing page, right? Because Amazon is calculated for every like extra millisecond that it takes to load, people will just go to another website and buy it. They just go to Walmart or New Balance or whatever it is that they were going to buy. Make sense? So they call it above the fold, and all that must load very quickly. So there you go. Robust servers. So since we're going to make it simple, we just create it from scratch. So we're going to actually create a server from scratch on just a little index.py file. And feel free to follow along. Please follow along. All righty. So I'm literally just going to create exactly what it says here, a file called server.py. And I can delete this. Don't need it. Servers.py. And we're going to copy this. We don't have to download anything or create a virtual environment. These are built into Python, so we're good. So here, we're just going to create a class. And it's going to parse some kind of request. They're just saying how many bits it can parse. And it's going to decode it. And then it's going to split the string, right, into separate lines. That's all it is, right? And then the parse request, it looks like it's going to split it into a list, right? And then create an object. right? This looks like it's the first line, right? R strip is stripping the string from any extra spaces, I believe, right? And it's making it the URI. So sometimes you see URI and sometimes you see URL. URI is kind of like a superset of URL, right? A URI can be like, can be a name or a location where a URL can only be a location. So every URL is a URI, but not every URI is a URL. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yep.
Just like every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. That's exactly the same thing. People don't understand that a square is just a rectangle that has what?
4 sides.
Even sides.
Yeah, equal sides. Right? Cool. All right, so that's the first part. This is just building a parse request. It's just creating an object, right? And giving it specific keys. And then it's stripping the request and putting it in there. All right, so let's make it so the server can accept requests and retrieve a list of users. This needs to be used outside of the class because that server will need to run these functions, not the requests. So be mindful of indents. Okay, so we're going to put this outside of the class, and I'm literally just copying and pasting. That's it. So that class is already created, but I need this logic to be outside of the class. So there, it is outside of the class right there. This is just going to read users from a list of a CSV, which I don't have yet, but I'm going to create here in a second. And then I'm going to space this out a little bit. And then find user, right? Next is just a built-in function, right? That's taking every line of the CSV, right? And reading it. Again, haven't created the CSV, but we're going to get to that. Cool. All right, so this is outside the function. Now let's set up the socket connection. And this is going to be also outside of the class, right? So this right here creates a TCP socket. There's two main protocols for sockets, TCP and UDP. And I always forget what the heck they stand for. Let me pull it up. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. You don't need to know that. You only need to know, right, that there's different kinds of protocol for transferring information, right? And TCP is much slower than UDP, but it's a lot more reliable. Nothing gets lost. Packets of information typically don't get lost. Where UDP, it's much faster, but packets of information periodically get lost. You only need to understand that these are different protocols for transferring information. That's it. That's pretty much all I know. And I've made it this far. So there you go. Quickly reuse that same socket, right? And this is saying, hey, listen on all network interfaces on port 9295, right? So we're going to be listening. We're going to be connecting to this specific port, right? From pretty much anywhere on the network. That's what that's reading. And again, this is a lot being thrown at you. So if you don't get everything right now, that's okay. All right, so finally, we're going to create an ongoing loop. This is really important. This will keep the server running indefinitely so you can continue to handle multiple client requests. This loop needs to be at the global level of the script, so it will run as soon as the script is executed. So what this is going to do is this is pretty much going to quote unquote turn on my server the minute that I execute the script, and it's going to run indefinitely until I stop it. Right? And you can tell that this is true because it's while true. That's pretty much an infinite loop. It's always going to be true, right? So it's going to be, hey, listen, server, listen. And it's going to be waiting for a request on localhost 92, the port that we set, right? And it's going to accept connections, right? And it's going to read users, and then it's going to do a little bit of logic here. And this is going to run until I pretty much close it. because there's nothing that's going to break that loop. Alrighty, we were talking about the CSV that we're going to use that we actually don't have. So this needs to be in here. So let's call it users. It says it in the GitHub repo users.csv, right? There we go. And then literally just copy this. Boom. CSV, perfect. Now I can run my server. How do I start this server?
Node server.py.
Not node, but
Python.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, Python.
you're good. I just realized that I was in the folder try catch still, but yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. Actually, I don't even know why I see the into try catch. I don't need to be in try catch, just here. Okay, so let's start our server. How do we start? We just execute Python server.py. Cool. So if I run it, what should be in the terminal here? What am I going to see in the terminal? I'm going to see something. Look at your code, line 33 down.
The console log that says you're waiting for a request.
Perfect. Yeah. Notice how it's quote unquote hanging there,
Mhm.
right? Because it's going to be indefinitely open until I close it. I can close it with Control T. Control C, Control C. Sorry about that. All right. But let me run it again. Okay, now it's going to run. Now it's waiting. It's listening. It's active. Cool. So now I'm going to try to connect to it, right? And it's going to return some list of users, right? Because that's what the logic is doing. So let's see what this says. Now you can run the brand new server in the terminal. I use that built-in terminal in VS Code, which is fine, right? To run the script it's running, open a new terminal and run the following. Curl, which is again, just a GET request users. When I run this in my terminal, what am I going to get?
You should get all the users from the list.
From my CSV list, right? Because that's what the code does.
Right.
And there they are. 1, Jane Doe. 2, Jane Smith. 3, Bob Johnson. And I can tell that that's right because I can go here. John, Jane, and Bob. Right? So there you go. I'm effectively pulling a GET request. I can actually use it in Postman too. Let's clear this out. This is the same thing on Postman. Why do I have it? What's going on here? Settings. Profile. I'll figure it out later. This is not making me happy. Why is there no dark mode on this? There is. I'm sure there is. I'll fix it later. Okay. So here, localhost 92 users. This is just a GET request. So a Postman shouldn't have anything. Oh, super hot tip. Download the application Postman. Don't use, you can use the web URL, but when you use the web URL, you're not going to be able to tap into your computer locally and use localhost, right? So you download the app. Also, the app is pretty sweet. So there you go. I can run it and I can get the same information, right? Nice and parsed. Postman is the GOAT. You're going to be using it a lot as a dev. Download it on your computer, get comfortable with it. You can even save different files, right? You can go to the Pokemon API. Oh, cocktails here. The cocktails one in here. You can save it. Why is this not working? Oh, there we go. And you can actually just, you can save it, right? You can save it, boom. Why is this not working? Give me 1 second. Under servers, I can just save. You can create a bunch of different folders, but now you have it saved, right? You can ping this. If you want to save it, you can save. You can have different folders for different API endpoints, right? And it's actually really useful when you're working on something and you're pinging a lot of different APIs that you don't want to keep saving and copying and pasting. So just save the tabs on Postman and you can ping them right away. So this really like speeds up development. That's what people love Postman. I think there's one for built in for VS Code called Thunder Client. Same idea. Same idea. All right, so Postman, the GOAT. All right, so there you go. We got this. So if you get a response, which we did, congrats. You've established a simple client-server connection on your local machine. And when you see the local host, it's just IP address 127.0.01, right? It's just the default IP address of your local machine. Make sense? That's not accessible to the internet or anything. It means, hey, it's just local. We're developing locally. It's your machine. All right. So for today's challenge, you're going to be running a similar server and troubleshooting where lines of code are broken. Here are some pointers to remember. The point of the protocols is for them to be followed as to maintain standards. That may happen all the time. That may happen all the time in the perfect world, but we don't live in the perfect world, right? And then it shows you an example, which we have in our code. If request parses URI in users or users, do this. What is this piece of code doing? It's being a little forgiving. It's doing what?
It's allowing you to enter different routes in the request.
Yeah, let's chew it. Let's try it. So this is saying, based on this, that if it's users or look at my terminal, user, send it. It's incredibly forgiving. There should be users. There shouldn't be user. But in the off chance that you forgot the S, we're going to give it to you. We know what you meant. Right? So that's what's happening. And I don't know who wrote this lesson, but they wrote this into their code, right? Remember I told you some servers are very forgiving? That's pretty forgiving. That's an example right there. Right? Because when you write your routes, it really should only be users. But if you got user, we'll give it to you. Make sense? Okay, so in this part of the example, client socket send is passed in an F string and sent out with the response. If the developer were to actually change 200 OK to 400 not found, the request would still be handled properly and the response would be sent out successfully. The only real difference is how confused the user would be. Yes, you could do that, I suppose. That'd be really confusing. Utilize print statements to help you inform understanding what's happening in each line of the code. This is kind of similar to the exercise that we kind of ran into accidentally earlier, where cocktail tea. And let me look at that again. What's bad about this? Actually, I used to love this API, but now I'm loving it slightly less. They should have put a what prefix on all these.
HTTPS.
Yeah. Who's using this website? Noobs. They're not going to know that. And if they try to curl it, they're going to be confused. There should be the prefix here. That's dumb. Someone email the cocktail DB. Tell their devs to fix it. That'd be dope if you did, and they actually did, though. I'm not going to do it, but that's a legitimate complaint. And tell them exactly what we just said here. Anyway. So there you go. All right, so while true, listening, and notice they just put a bunch of print statements here, and then you get a bunch of terminal output here. They're literally just using print statements after every action to see if something's breaking. All right, so in this example, we use print statement to see what the heck is being returned by server accept. And if that isn't enough, we know that it's being passed into the instance for the request class. So we can reference the line self-parse request client socket decode split to see if the data looks like after it's parsed. Just always be mindful of any new errors that pop up, right? Last but not least, I haven't actually clicked on this documentation. I don't know where it's going to go. Oh, how sockets work in Python. Low-level networking interface. Feel free to read that if you are so inclined. And here's your challenge: is HTTP server. I'm pretty sure it's just a server that you're going to try to implement that has mistakes in it. All right, so let's look. you're going to be modifying a very low-level HTTP server written in Python. Just so you know, production-grade servers have a lot of bells and whistles, but what you'll do today in class is just the meat and potatoes, or a basket drugs if you stick with a music metaphor. Take a look at the code, then run it, and make an HTTP request from your client of choice, Perl, Postman, browser, etc. Oh, I can show you. There's one called Thunder Client that's built into VS Code. That's also very good. There you go, Thunder Client, 5.5 million installs. Trust and publish and install. Boom. Thunder Client. If we look at it, oh, I still have my server running. I gotta exit out of this. If you look at it, it's exactly, it kind of looks a lot like Postman, right? But the sweet thing about this extension, this extension is built in straight into VS Code, right? So you have your terminal, you have your code, you have your API client, all in one place. So people really like this one at my job. So give it a shot. Give it a shot. Pretty cool, right? Thunder Client. Alrighty, so we're going back to this. Alrighty, take a look at the code, then run it. Make an HTTP request from your client of choice. What error did you get and where did it come from? Trace the error so it's source and fix it. You should use print statements and or breakpoints to examine parameters. Once you figured out what self-parse request needs to be, you're going to implement the second endpoint. When the client makes a request to localhost/time, you'll respond with JSON, keyword here, JSON instead of HTML. The JSON response should look something like this. What's this right here? It's current time, and this is just a
Date.
Yeah, it's just a date. They call it a timestamp, right? Because it has more than a date. It has an actual time.
Date time, yeah.
And typically, times are in UTC unless you convert them. If you use the code for existing HTTP response to guide you, you should be able to get pretty far. For your convenience, datetime and JSON are already imported, right? So here, I'd literally just copy this and let's open it, see what's up. I'm just going to delete this and just keep doing everything in here. Why not? Control backtick, and I'm going to just get clone. All right, so you're going to get this folder here. HTTP server, you have this README, you have server. And if I want to check if the server works, what would I do?
Try running it. So
Yeah, just try running it. So I'm going to cd into HTTP server, and I'm just going to do Python, Python server.py. Oh, looks like it's active. All right, let me see if I can curl it. So just curl what? Or I could just do my buddy Postman. Let me just Postman. I can 9292.
Yeah.
9292. Let's hit it. See what happens. Boom. This is the error.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying HTTP server line 26.
Yeah, do /time.
Was that what it was? All right. So it needs to be /time is what you're saying, Cisco?
Well, it needs to be / or / time.
So let's try time. Send it. Oh, now I'm getting this. It's saying if client requests parse URI /type error and untype is object not subscriptable. So there is an issue with, where's the issue? This is the last thing that I'll give you, and then we'll break and then we'll cut you loose on this. What do you think the issue is here? What's the first thing we need to figure out?
What that URI key is that we're trying to use in order to compare that value in URI key to.
Yeah. So here there's an issue, right? Which means, right, client request, parse request, that there's an issue there, right? So I'm gonna have to check out these right here. What's happening on line 24? What is this an example of?
Interesting. It looks like kind of like a fetch request, don't it?
No, what's happening here? What's this? I see this a lot in React, but
Oh,
this,
it's I forget the terminology they call it, but it's kind of like decoupling or taking
yeah,
the
yeah, destructuring. Good.
destructuring, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
there you
destructuring this specific function call, which tells me there's two parts. There's a client connection and a client address. I would start with console logging this,
go. Mhm.
and then console logging after this. And even console logging, no, that should be enough. Console logging both of these and line 120, 25, figuring out what's happening. Why is it throwing this error? But the server works, right? There's just some logic in here that you need to fix. Questions? And that's the homework assignment. Alrighty, I'm going to pause here. Recording here. All right, we're back. How do we do?
I did not get it.
Okay. Where did you get stuck, Joe?
I'm still getting an issue in Postman. I'm getting error socket hang up. And yeah, I'm like trying to troubleshoot that. I'm not really sure what that means. So I finally threw that in Grok. I was just trying to play around. I was trying to see I could like the server runs, but I think it was running before. I can't remember now.
It was running before, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the server runs and then I was screwing around with it, but it looked like I was cutting out some of the I mean, I wasn't troubleshooting properly, but when I cut out some of the like the if elif statements just to test it, then it looked like the server was the request was almost getting like in an infinity loop. So I was
Uh-huh.
screwing around with that, but then when I put that back in, I was still getting socket errors. So yeah, that's where I kind of left off here.
Okay, good. That's a good explanation. All right, Cisco.
Yeah, well, I got the let me show you. I got the first section to work, the first problem. Um, so I figured out what was the problem with this, and this basically, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong one. I figured out what the problem was with the first thing here, and that basically had to do with uh, this parse request function up here. So basically, we needed to split it up into a list and go in there and grab the method and then the URI from it, which is what it was trying to refer to here, which gave us our first error that we were coming up with. So once I was able to grab that, once I run it here, let me start it over. And then I opened it up here. I just opened it up here in my browser. So yeah, you get hello world, right? Which is what you wanted to output for that first line. So I got down to the second line where I was actually trying to get the JSON date time to respond back. So I was in the middle of troubleshooting how to get that value back or to have that value show up.
Good, good, awesome. Nicole, where'd you end up?
So I tend to hop around a little bit just because when I get stuck, I just try to look at something else. So I got stuck with the socket hang up like Joe. Um, and I realized that there was the extra like parameter that wasn't being used in the parse request. Um, but so I started by just like kind of reading through it. So I put a note that like that one's not there. And then the first thing I kind of put in was I did the date time thing. I just put current time equals date time dot now.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna pull
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
current just because I was like I realized there was a pass there. And if we're trying to return the current time, so I just threw that in and was like, come back to this later. And then I went back up to, so I read it through, put that in, then went back up to my like socket hang up thing and was trying to figure out what that was.
Okay, same spot. Good. Adam?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Right. So the I saw the same thing, Nick, that unused parameter there. So just by fixing that, but I mean effectively we were able to copy I think it was like line 10 of the parse request definition in the previous example. And that kind of solved that problem, correct? You know what I'm saying? You want me to share? You can see yeah. Um, so like this part here, this is where you had that unused parameter, right, Nick? I can't remember all the edits I made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically by taking this line from the example, that solved that initial problem, correct? Does that sound right, Guillermo?
I don't know. I haven't actually done
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah, okay. So I think that got it working, that part working there. And looking at, I think the other issue was here on the client socket send. This is where we needed to put in that F statement that you did, right, Cisco? This is where you put in that the F statement HTTP slash 1.1.
Well, yes, I didn't change that. I didn't
Okay.
change anything there.
Okay.
There was no need to change anything there.
Mhm.
Uh, what if you scroll up, so that parse request right there, so you split it. Okay, you got it split.
Mhm.
You don't need to strip out that forward slash though. So just take
Okay.
that away.
Just this whole part here.
Yeah, just take that away, and then it should work.
Let's try it again. Postman. Actually, I probably need
There you go. It actually worked. You got hello, you see you got hello world there, but now it's breaking on the rest of the code.
uh,
So yeah, but you did get your return back right there in
okay.
HTML. So
Okay. Interesante. Muy interesante. Okay. So, all right, I have to screw around with that because I don't know why we don't need that split at the end there. Oh, or the trip rather. Uh, okay. Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry to derail. I was just curious.
No worries, no worries. Good stuff. Adam, where'd you end up?
I'm stuck on the debugging. It doesn't help that I can't run it. I don't. Did Jordan tell you how boned my WSL is?
Uh, no, he didn't
That's a
tell me.
technical term. That's a technical.
Probably like the
Your
third or fourth
weasel is
time.
broken?
Huh?
Your weasel, your WSL is broken?
Yeah, it's about like the third time my classmates are having to hear this spiel. Um, the other day, me and Jordan were working together. He was trying to fix it, and it was to the point where he was like, just like buy a MacBook. So I did, and it comes in on the third. Like you know how it takes a slice of your drive and then WCL uses that. Well, that disappeared, so I lost everything.
No, that things don't disappear. You did something to make it disappear.
Oh well, yeah, I obviously like screwed something up really bad.
Or it could be there and it could be on a path where you don't know where it is. So if the computer doesn't know what path to look for something in, it's never going to find it. It's almost like it's not there. Okay.
I basically what I was doing was I was just like researching what the different things uh
Oh, you got muted, bud.
huh?
You got
Oh,
muted.
dang, my
Keep
bad.
going.
Uh I was basically just since I couldn't run it, I was just looking at like what did a parse request mean? Like how does it work? I've just been looking these things up and then
Okay.
you know.
Okay. If Jordan West can figure out your weasel thing, that is really bad. Jordan West is actually pretty good. Oh no, you are in a lot of trouble, it looks like. Okay, cool. Let's walk through some of it and I'll leave you a little bit of it for you to finish it, okay? And I don't have anything written, so we're gonna do this together, okay? So if you're like, oh, I didn't get very far, that's fine. I haven't got anywhere either. So here we go. Mostly because I didn't attempt it. I was too busy checking if my car was okay. All righty. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the code that we have, right? This is the HTTP server. This is literally just copy paste. I'm gonna have my Postman loaded up. I figured out the darkening situation here. Cool. Make this smaller. Okay, cool. So the situation that we're in is we're just needed to run this, right? And it runs. That's right. That works. Yes, that works. So if I ping it with just 9292, I get this error. Right, so that's telling me that line 26, and this is kind of where we left off, line 26 here, there's an issue with client request, parse request, none-type object, right? So there's an issue here that we don't know. Okay, so client request is here, and client connection. Okay, how did you fix this, Isco?
Let me maximize the screen here. So yeah, go back up to the parse request there. So the
Here.
parse request, the second one, the
Uh-huh.
definition right there at the bottom. So I just enter a new line there, and I put in request line, request underscore line equals well, of interest, I noticed that the decoded request text was not being used. That's one of the
Okay.
things. That was my first alert there.
Okay.
That wasn't being, that variable wasn't being used anywhere. So I created decoded underscore request text
Uh-huh.
and square bracket 0 dot split.
So you split this.
Uh-huh. And
Okay.
then what I did, I actually to figure out what exactly was in that, I just did a four line in request line loop, and then I printed out each line just to see what oh, print. You're gonna need print.
Oh, if I print just full request line, what is it gonna
It
give me?
it'll give you the method, the URI, and the HTTP yeah, protocol.
Okay, let's see it. I'm gonna run the server. I'm gonna ping it with Postman, right? We should get some kind of print statement here. Okay, cool. So we do get that. We get that get HTTP1 here, and it's still throwing the error. All right, so how did you fix this?
I just commented that out, and in that parse request I removed that none, which is where we were saying,
Mm-hmm.
that's not iterable, right? So and then I made a dictionary, and method was the first key, and request line key 0 or index 0,
Uh-huh.
uh, comma. I made another key called URI, and request line key 1. Yeah.
So that this will return a dictionary.
Yeah. That'll
And
return a
this
dictionary.
this fixes it. All right, I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna run just ping 9292. There you go.
Yeah.
An example page, hello world, right? So the issue was that it was returning none,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's not what it was looking for. It was looking for a dictionary, right? With a
Yeah.
method in a URI. All right, so there you go. Boom. All right, so what's the next thing that I need to fix? What URL?
The next one is time, /time, /time.
/time. So if I ping this, I'm going to get a different kind of error.
Well,
Doesn't look
it'll pass, because right now it's just a pass statement in there. So it's
okay.
just
That's why I'm not getting anything. Okay, so let's look at our code and let's look at /time. So here we go. There you go. It's just a pass. Okay, so when the URI, right, that URL, the ending, the suffix is /time, what should it do?
it should, well, what we wanted to do is return a JSON object
A JSON object with what?
with the date time in it.
Okay, is datetime already in here? Datetime's already in here on line 2,
Right.
right? So that would be
Mhm.
just a simple what? Current time? Let's just return current
Yeah.
time here. Let's do current time, right? And that's just datetime, datetime,
Datetime.now
datetime,
or I'm
datetime
sorry,
dot now.
parentheses now, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can stringify it. I can never remember this, so let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it's this. Let's stringify it. This I just copied. I don't typically, I think this works. I don't typically remember this. There we go. All right, so we want that, but we want it as a what?
As a JSON object.
Okay, so we want to build, we can do JSON or we can build an HTML response,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? So this says client connection and client address, right? So we kind of want to use that, right?
Right.
So we want to use the client connection and send what? Look at line 31. This is going to be very
Right.
similar, right? We're sending what? We're building an HTML response. You remember the last one? Here, let me
Mhm.
show you once again. It's send an HTML package. So here we go. There it is. An example page with hello world as the body. That's it. Okay. So if we do /time, let's send something similar here, right? So we know that it's going to be something very similar to client connection, right? Send, build. I'm literally just copying line 31.
Mhm.
Build HTML response. And now here comes the tricky part. How am I going to build this HTML response?
You want to do the main thing you want to change is the content type to application /JSON.
No. You keep trying to send JSON, but we're sending HTML. We
Oh,
already have it. We already have it. It says build HTML response,
oh,
right? We
okay.
have it right there on line 16, right?
Mhm.
So really, why do we just send an F string, right? Or not
All
an
right.
F. Is this, yeah, F string. Send an F string. It says time now,
Mhm.
space. Is that how an F string works? Yeah.
Yeah.
This and then current time. Current time. If I can spell it right. Current time. Time now. Boom. What this is going to do is this is just a function. Build HTML response is going to cause this function. It's going to send the text body, and I'm literally just sending a string. It's going to throw it in here inside the body, right?
Okay.
Boom. Does that work? Let's see. So now if I ping time, I should get some kind of HTML response, right?
Mhm.
And time now, right now, the time when I send the request. Well, actually, when they send the response, but close enough. Do I have to restart this? Okay, let me save this and restart it just to make sure. That didn't work. So let's run it again, Python server. We restart it. Now I'm going to ping this. Boom. All right, so there we go. Now we're getting an error. It looks like it's saying line 34. That's the line I just wrote. Client connection set. It
Oh,
says
you put the
socket
wrong
object
thing
has
in.
no attribute sent. Oh, that's because it's send. All
Yeah.
right, there you go. Send. Let's try that again. Restart my server. Now ping this. If I did this right, I'm going to get HTML. right? I'm literally just going to get this HTML, guys. The only thing difference is, hey, my body is a timestamp. That's it, right?
Okay.
Ooh. All right. So it's saying type error, bytes like object are required, not str, line 34.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but so something that's throwing me off here on 28, your second,
Yeah.
where it says client address.
Uh-huh.
Why is that grayed out? Should that not be?
It's not being used.
Okay, so should we get rid of that?
Uh,
Be throwing that.
Potentially. But right now that's not eventually you would clean that up, yeah. But right now it's not causing a problem, so we're just gonna leave it.
Okay, sorry.
No? No worries.
So it's requiring a byte object, not so you put a string in there. So you have to send it in the yeah, you
Gotta
have to
encode it,
encode it
right?
in bytes. Yeah.
Yep. So let's see. Python server, it's running. Ping it. There you
There it
go.
is.
An example page, time now, which is May 28 at 8:53 p.m. There you go. All right. What else was required of us there?
Yeah. Yeah, it says it needs to respond in JSON instead of HTML.
What's responding in right now?
HTML.
Yeah. Right. So we got it to work with HTML, right? But we haven't got what the actual, this is good. This works now, except its return is using this, right? Build HTML response, right? And the last step, this is fine. We worked through it. Both endpoints work. It's just HTML. And now we need to convert it to JSON. And this is the part that I'm going to leave you with. What do we need? How do we go about this? We're returning HTML and we got the timestamp correct. All that is cool. All this works, man. Right? If I ping it with my postman, ping that, boom, 854.56, 854.58, that works. My regular endpoint 92, boom, that works. Hello world in the body. Both work. Awesome. Now, but I want to return JSON instead of an HTML element. How would I go about this? This is your homework assignment for the rest of the time. I just want to get you started. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to exit out because I'm not going to really run anything else, right? Both endpoints work, but instead of HTML, we want to return JSON. Here's your code in front of you. That's why line 3 is being imported right there, JSON. The last step is to return JSON here. And how about this? I'm going to make it one step further. I want it to return. I want you to redo this class and have it return JSON instead. So copy all of it, comment it down here, and have it just return JSON instead. Right here, you have a function called build HTML response. What's going to be different between this file right now and then the one down here where I asked you to write this in JSON? What's going to be the difference?
Client connections, and instead of build HTML response, it should be build JSON response.
Yeah. Just comment this out and use it as a guide, right? Could you just create another file? Yeah, go ahead. Instead of commenting out, that's actually probably a better idea. I just did this because I thought it'd be easier, but go ahead and create another file. So you do this, and this is not going to be build HTML response. This is going to be build JSON response, right? And this is not how you write JSON, right? you are going to return a JSON object here. And you're going to modify existing logic to use JSON for both endpoints, right? 9292 and 9292. 9292 / type. Oh. I guess it is confusing to comment that one of them. Just create another file, call it server JSON.py or something. So this is it. Question.
Mhm.
And down here where it says build HTML response, right? You're going to be building JSON responses. Give that a shot. Give it a shot for the next 20, 25 minutes. If you can't figure it out, definitely, who's teaching tomorrow? Give me 1 second. Umar. Ask Umar. But this should be pretty easy. You're effectively just changing one function and then making slight modifications in the logic. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And to reference Joe's question earlier, you were saying, hey, get rid of client address. If you get rid of client address, but this method is returning two things, and you only have client connection, there's no way to destructure it and know which one you're pulling. So would that work?
It might. If you just won't know what the hell is going on. What if you just had, like, in the other example, it was client connection, comma, and then just underscore. How would that affect it? I guess I could look that up.
I don't really understand your question, but I'm going to try to answer it this way. So client connection will package everything inside server except, right? But if you destructure it and there's two elements inside server except, it'll grab one of each, right? The first one will be the first one, the second one, right? Like if it was a list, that's how you would destructure it, right? So you know which one corresponds to which. Now, if it's just one, then the list is under client connection, right? And you have to understand the client connection is a list and not a single element. So those are subtle differences that will throw a wrench into the way you handle it. Like, does it really ultimately matter if you can just create the logic to handle it? No, right? But if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, that's going to create a problem, right? Kind of similar to what happened up here, right? There's an error down here because this wasn't being submitted properly. It thought I was getting something that it wasn't.
All right. Yeah, I created a print statement for both of those variables as well to see the difference between the two. And that might help, Joe. If you do that, you'll see that there are actually two items in that server except.
All right, yeah, I'll mess with that a little bit. I think, just you don't know what you don't know, and I'm like, I don't know what the problems are half the time. So so it gets frustrating, but I guess that's the nature of the game.
No worries. And eventually you'll progress to a point where you know what the problems are, but you don't know how to solve them. That's the next step. You know what the problems are, you don't know how to solve them.
I'm a long ways away from that.
And then the next step is you know what the problem is and you know how to solve them. And in my job, they call those senior devs. Those guys are the guys that know what the problem is and they know how to solve it. Everybody else is a junior because you only know half of that equation.
Yep.
But even identifying the problems is progress, right? If you're a good junior dev and you can always identify the issue and not know how to solve them, that's actually pretty good, right? Because a lot of the time a lot of juniors that I've seen, can I even identify the problem? That's a tough spot to be, right? Because if you don't know what's wrong, you can't get help. Or when you try to get help, you don't know how to describe the problem. They're just like, what are you talking about? What do you need? Right. So progressing to a point where you can identify the problems, first step. Next step is trying to solve them. And then when you can identify and solve everything, you're a senior. Make sense?
Yep.
All right, dudes, give that a shot in JSON with the last like 18 minutes of class or whatever. I'm going to end the class right here. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Take it easy.